King Von was one of the biggest rappers coming out of Chicago. Like many other drill rappers who are really about that life, sadly, most of their music careers were cut short due to street activity. Here's the story of King Von and how he truly passed. Dayvon Bennett, otherwise known as King Von, was born August 9th, 1994 in Chicago. At age 16, King Von went to jail for the first time. This would only be the beginning of his long history of legal issues. King Von was arrested several times before Lil Durk finally stepped in and signed him to his OTF label. OTF, known as Only the Family, is Lil Durk's label that he started while in Chicago, signing artists that were based in his area. King Von released his first single under the label titled Crazy Story back on December 6th in 2018. This one single would go on to change his life forever, but with King Von's music career at an all-time high, him and Lil Durk got themselves involved in a very serious court case in 2019. Lil Durk and King Von were arrested in connection of using firearms in Atlanta towards a rival street member known as Alexander Witherspoon outside of a diner called The Varsity. After 2 weeks in jail, Lil Durk and King Von were released on $250,000 bond. There was conditions made that the two rappers cannot have any contact with each other until the trial begins. With the two having a restraining order against each other, things obviously didn't end well. While on bond, King Von was able to produce and release his debut studio album titled Welcome to O Block on October 30th. 1 week later, on November 6th, King Von, with a select few friends, family members, as well as business partners, all met at a club in downtown Atlanta celebrating the release of his newest album. Atlanta is home of the best recording studios, the best way to record with other rappers for features, and it's obviously the best place to be noticed. But it does have negative sides as well, as Atlanta has the highest crime rate involving rappers. Sadly, on the night of November 6th, the streets of Atlanta took once again another rapper. On the night of November 6th, King Von and his boys rented out an Airbnb for the night as they needed a place to crash after the album release party. While at the release party, it was said by many people there that King Von wasn't himself that night. He was acting very strange, not talking to anyone, and would always be on his phone. Now this could have been due to the fact that he got word mid-party Quando Rondo was at a different club nearby. At this time, Quando Rondo and King Von were having a lot of beef off social media. With both rappers going at each other's ex-girlfriends, this was just a recipe for disaster. Now at the end of the celebration party, King Von heads into an SUV with a driver and one other person. Usually King Von rolls with 3 security guards, as well as all of the boys from O Block, but tonight was a different story. Once the celebration party was done, they all started driving towards the Airbnb. Halfway to the Airbnb, King Von tells his driver to turn his vehicle around and go to a lounge called the Monaco. At this lounge, Quando Rondo just so happened to be there, sitting in the parking lot taking a nap inside of his McLaren. It was still unconfirmed at this point whether or not this was a coincidence of them meeting up here, but I don't believe it was. When arriving to the lounge, King Von sat in his SUV with his driver for 20 to 30 minutes. He wasn't speaking to anyone, he was just sitting there on his phone. This is when the man that was also in the vehicle with King Von quickly alerts everyone at the Airbnb to immediately rush over to the Monaco as something was about to go down involving King Von. 10 minutes then passed, and all you see on the security footage is 4 SUVs rolling deep into the parking lot. It almost looked like the Secret Service was there. This is when one of King Von's boys that was in the SUV ends up scouting out Quando Rondo. He tells King Von where exactly he is, and King Von is then seen hopping out of his SUV and walking into the middle of the street. In the middle of the street, there was an SUV parked. It had Quando Rondo standing beside it, as he just woken up from his nap. Now King Von and his crew quickly swarmed Quando Rondo right in the middle of the street. A small conversation then occurs before a massive brawl breaks out between King Von and Quando Rondo. With Von and Rondo going at it in the middle of the street, there was no firearms being used or anything. This was until Rondo's best friend Lil Tim hops out of the white SUV with a firearm and starts using it to defend Quando Rondo in the brawl with Von. With the sound of firearms being used in the area, undercover cops that were parked down the street started creeping up to the location. They started lighting up the area where the brawl was happening. It was described as a war zone going on in the middle of the street. There were firearms being used from all over the place. People are seen running behind cars and ducking for cover on video footage. While this was all going down, King Von and Quando Rondo were still out in the middle of the street. This was until King Von's best friend Muop then quickly runs over to Von. He knocks Quando Rondo out of the way, grabs King Von and helps him get into the getaway vehicle. Sadly, while in the getaway car, they didn't get to the hospital fast enough, which is sadly how King Von passed in the process. As well as more people from King Von's crew, such as his manager 100K Management, were affected by the strays that the law enforcement were sending from down the street. So he was also rushed to the hospital as well, where a lot of people ended up getting arrested by law enforcement, such as Quando Rondo and Lil Tim. It was such an unfortunate event, one that definitely could have been avoided. And mind you, due to the restraining order that I mentioned earlier between King Von and Lil Durk, due to their 2019 court case, Lil Durk was not able to be there on the night of the celebration party for Welcome to O Block. But as said by King Von's own manager who was with him that night, this was King Von being who he truly was. When he had an issue with someone, he deals with it in person. King Von isn't one to sit around and let things blow over or settle things on social media. He likes to meet face to face and deal with the problem. In an exclusive interview, one of the men that was in the getaway car with King Von the moment that he sadly passed mentioned that while driving to the hospital, King Von was the most calm person in that vehicle. King Von was the one telling everyone in that car to calm down and that he's gonna be okay and make it through. And that goes to show you the type of person that King Von truly was. King Von, otherwise known as Dayvon Bennett, was a rapper who truly lived the lyrics that he rapped about. He spent a majority of his adult life in jail, and when he wasn't in jail, he was able to release some of the best storytelling music that we have ever heard come out of Chicago. From hit songs like Took Her to the O, Crazy Story, The Code, and Back Again featuring Lil Durk, he'll always be remembered as one of the best storytelling rappers of all time. And there's the story of King Von. If you're a fan of Von, leave a like on the video. I'm curious how many fans are watching today. Anyways, it's been District Trending and I'm out. Peace.